Hi Omar, this is Professor Evans with feedback on your SA4, the Seeing paper. So as always, a good place to start is the criteria for excellence for this assignment. So an introduction that engages the audience, a controlling thesis, examples to explain out our abstract ideas, synthesizing your words with the words of others, proper MLA citation, and this idea of the quotation sandwich. So signal phrase, the quote, and then explaining the quote out. Rather than letting the quote itself do all the work. So, looking at your paper, one of the things initially I was like, you were using this framework of the class to talk about the nature of seeing. And my first thinking was like, well, I mean, all these, and it made it seem very much like the reflection essay that you're going to write for, your final portfolio. It's kind of like, well, this is what we did, this is what we did in class. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, no, but I mean, that's a way to kind of like, as a framing device to be able to talk about these very different things. There may not be a natural connection between Dillard, Sontag, and Berger. So you need to construct one, which would end up being the class itself. So in that case, my advice is that if you continue using this kind of narrative structure of the idea of the class to be able to talk about these things, then don't assume that the audience knows the class. On the very first day of class at DePaul University, or maybe even that way, my freshman year at DePaul, I was required to take WRD 103. The instructor, Edward Evans, on the first day of class said that the theme of the class would be the nature of seeing. That all of a sudden puts us into more of a context than just say the very first day of class we were told to explain what the nature of seeing was. So that then all of a sudden you're talking about this idea that your kind of reaction and thinking through the process ends up being within a framework that the reader can understand. So I think that might work as well. I'm looking at your thesis. There are so many people out in the world who give us an opportunity to see something, but unfortunately they don't give us an opportunity. For those reasons, has changed. Well, okay, but see, then this isn't necessarily a thesis. This is just kind of, this is why I say that one of the challenges for this essay is that in a lot of ways it seems more of a reflection. So be careful about that, because a lot of times I talk about this as the synthesis essay, but in a better way to possibly think about it is a argument essay. You're making an argument. So here's your opportunity in your thesis moment to tell me what your argument of what you think the nature of seeing is. We say to support this argument is to refer back to the essays in class. Oh, I guess that may be your thesis here. I've learned to appreciate the act of seeing as a gift and not just as a human sense. That might be it. That might actually be your thesis. Okay, so if we think about that, seeing as a gift, that's the argument. But then I would also go back to the thesis Baker, the Shaker thesis machine, where it's the idea of like, because what? Because we have to appreciate what we encounter, our experience, whatever those things are. But that's what I mean by this idea of guiding principle. So the thesis works as a guider. More problematic in here is your use of MLA citation. So here's a good example. So you're doing a couple of things here. One of them is, I kind of like this idea about the blanket story where you're talking about this right here. Might also, you do give us this a little bit right here. We are instructed to write a narrative about something of great value in our life. Okay, good. Contextual background that the reader would end up know. You get this quote here and you put it in italics, I think to give it emphasis. And then when you're actually directly quoting, you're also doing it as well. All you need is quotation marks. So I think that either here and here, don't put it in quotation mark in italics. And here you've got ways of seeing in italics and in quotation marks. So you're kind of doing this double signifier. You're trying to put lots of different things on to indicate that this is quotation. My first thing is like, go look at chapter 16 of St. Martin's Handbook. I'm going to pause for just a moment. I'll be right back.